for this faith, for this school of thought, for the school of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Even when it came to Muharram, in Muharram it came to a point where even though I was Sunni, and I still used to pray like a Sunni, and I still believe in what I believed in, I'd dress up in black from head to toe. I'd go with my friend to the Husayniyat. I'd hear lectures by Sayyid Mahdi al-Mudarrisi. I'd hear lectures by Shaykh Hasham Hussaini. I remember the first majlis I ever sat in was a majlis about Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And this was, like I'm saying, maybe 7-8 years ago. And the first musa'ib I ever heard in my life was an English musa'ib about Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And it touched me so much that someone who gave so much toward Islam can still fall from his horse onto the floor without any hands. And when someone falls to the floor without hands to press the ground, what does he fall on? He falls on his face. That was the first musa'ib I was exposed to. That was the first musibah I was exposed to. And that touched me. That really touched me, because I was exposed to the beauty of this school of thought. I wasn't exposed to, I wasn't exposed to criticism of the school, or lies about the school, blatant lies about the school, or people attacking the school before I was exposed to this. And that was very important in my life. And the reason I never took that step to convert is simply because I was embedded in such a way, I grew up in such a way where, I was Sunni. And it's very hard, it's very, very hard to take that, to push yourself to take a step to change your life forever, to go against your family and what they've taught you, to go against the majority of your community and what they've taught you, to go against that. It's very, very difficult to take that step. And it's very easy to say, but you believe that this might be right, so why don't you convert? And the fact of the matter is, if your heart is not settled, you'll never go towards it. And it takes a lot, it takes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it also takes a lot for your heart to be settled. So I think that, growing up, when I did eventually become Shia, I debated and dialogued with many of my friends, and it wasn't very vicious. It wasn't, because we were all friends at the end of the day, we were all young. But even though they couldn't, I don't want to say, they couldn't respond, but even though they couldn't rebuttal anything that I would say to them, they'd never go home and think, I need to make this change in my life, because their heart wasn't settled. And it's not, I'm not going to say that makes them bad people or anything, but just their heart wasn't settled. And until your heart is settled, you'll never make that decision and make that big step to change your whole life and become a follower of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. For a period of a long time, and there was a period of, I think, 5 months before my conversion, where I continuously spoke to my friend and debated with my friend, my best friend, who was Iraqi Shia. And I think the thing that struck me most about, and I think that struck everyone most about him, was that he was so content with his religion. He was so content with what he believed in. Like, if a Sunni came and spoke to him, just from his eyes you can see how content he is with what he believes in. He's not a sheikh, he's not a scholar, he doesn't know Islam from A to Z. He doesn't know, all the evidences from A to Z. He can't say, yes, Sahih Bukhari, book volume 6, this page. He can't do that. But just from the content, the conviction in his eyes, you can see what he believes in. And that is something very hard to find in other schools of thought, in my opinion, from what I've seen and what I've experienced. And that in itself was a big push for me. So when I'd speak to him, he'd tell me about these events. He'd tell me about, for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Battle of Siffin. He'd tell me about, for example, the attack on the door of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And what I'd do was I'd go online in my own time and I'd research about this. And what I'd read Sunni Shia debates online. So I wouldn't ignorantly, for example, just go straight to the Shias and say, let's see what they say, and I'm going to accept it. No. And neither would I go to the Sunnis and say, let's see what they say, and I'm going to accept it. Let's see what they say about the Shias, and I'm going to accept it. No. I looked at Sunni and Shia debates, and I saw continuously that for some reason, the Shias, the evidence they would bring was like almost, it would leave you it would leave you bewildered, the fact that there's so much beliefs that are preached and followed in the school of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that are found in Sunni books. And me personally, if when I found a belief in as-Sahih, what Sunnis what Sunni scholars consider to be a authentic book of traditions, if I find contradictions in these books, then automatically I'm going to start asking myself questions. Automatically I'm going to think, look, there are I think it was over 90 narrations of the attack on the door of Fatima az-Zahra in Sunni books. That's not a small thing. That's not a small thing at all. And these are not books where their hadith might be authentic, might be not authentic. These are books that are accepted by Sunni scholars. These are books of history that are accepted by all. And if you see something like this, you can't just sit back and say, you know what, Allah Kareem, whatever happens, everyone loved each other. No, you have to think, what was going on at that time? Why was her house burned? That's not a small thing. She's the daughter of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And from this, I started to ask myself a lot of questions. I think at the age of 15, I think youth would prefer to be doing other stuff than, sitting online and researching about Islam. But alhamdulillah, my group of friends that we had, some were Sunni and some were Shia. Now all of them are Shia, by the way. But this group of friends that we had, about 5 of us, we had an Iraqi, we had a Somalian, an Afghani, an Iranian, Afghani/Iranian, and we had a Bengali. And this group of friends, there was always a sense of religion in us. So for example, we'd go play basketball, we'd go cinema, we'd go out, but we'd always pray. And that was a big effect of my best friend, my Iraqi friend. And I think from that, alhamdulillah, because we were kind of in a way cornered off from the rest of our school in such a way that, this was our group. And because we spent so much time outside of school with each other, there was always that sense of religiosity in us. So despite that, the fact that we were young and, everyone else was enjoying themselves in ways that they shouldn't be enjoying themselves, we, alhamdulillah, we always knew the difference between right and wrong. And I think, as I touched upon earlier, the way my mother raised me, all of our mothers raised us in similar ways. So if you bring one person who has been raised and taught the difference between right and wrong, and you put him in a group where all the five of us believe in the same kind of thing, they understand the difference between right and wrong. I think many other friends, they were raised in such a way, but they'd befriend someone who, didn't know the difference between right and wrong, or didn't care about the difference between right and wrong. So there'd automatically, be a kind of clash of religiosity, and they wouldn't spend so much time in prayer or in Islam. And I don't want to say we were the most religious people in the world, but alhamdulillah, we had Islam as a pillar in our life. So that in itself was like a kind of anchor for us to not go out and waste our time. Not waste our time, but not go out and do things that Islam considers forbidden. I think, as I touched upon before, it's one thing to see all the evidences in front of your eyes, but it is another thing to have your heart opened for you. Now, my conversion surprisingly isn't very, it's not very dramatic, I heard another reversion story about someone who bungee jumped from a bridge and then converted during the bungee jump. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, I wish I had a conversion like that. Mine is quite boring, but I think that after all the evidences I found, I was literally just sitting down one day and I felt my heart open. I just felt my heart open. And automatically I said, you know what? All these evidences are there for you. You have to accept it. You have to take this leap. Because you've seen everything. Months before, I was already convinced that this was right, deep down inside. But until the heart was open for me, I didn't accept it, because I was always thinking, it's like for example when you pray, and there's something wrong with your prayer, but you ignore it. There's something wrong deep down. There's something wrong in your prayer. Maybe for example, you're wearing clothes that are a bit najas, or you haven't done wudu or something like that. You have that doubt in your mind, but you ignore it. Similarly, I had that doubt. I had my conviction already inside me, but there was something blocking it. There was always, family, what my family going to say, how are my community going to perceive me? How are my other friends going to perceive me? What's the mosque that I attend to? What are they going to say about me? The whole world's going to turn against me. All that was there. But one day that just opened. that just literally just opened. And I think, and I believe, that is the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam giving you everything and opening your heart for you. That is Imam Ali alayhi salam coming to you, taking your hand and saying, take this journey with me. And truly, what this teaches me personally is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides whom He wills. And as soon as that happened, I called my friend, and he was, it was so out of the blue. I called him. I said, his name's Kadham. I called him. I said, Kadham, I might become Shia. He was shocked. He said, Inshallah. Closed the phone. Told his mum. His mum said, Inshallah. And 3-4 hours later, I came to him. I said, you know what? This is the right choice. This is what needs to be done. He said, okay, let's do this. Let's do this together. And we went to the mosque together. We prayed together. And from that day, that day, my personality just changed completely, 360 degrees. I became much more quiet. I became much more spiritual. It was like an automatic change, an automatic 360 degree change in everything in my life. So, alhamdulillah. After my conversion, obviously it was a dramatic change for not just me, but the people around me. In terms of my family, the thing is, my family were never exposed to Shi'ism like I was, so they didn't really have an understanding of what Shi'ism was. So obviously they were very, very upset at the beginning. Not because they were against Shi'ism, but because they didn't know what Shi'ism was. It's like, for example, imagine if you're a parent, your son comes to you and says, tomorrow, now I've become, I don't know, some random sect in Islam you've never heard of. You don't know what these people are. You don't know if someone's brainwashing him. You don't know if someone's using this to benefit them. If someone's brainwashing your son to for their own personal agenda, you don't know what's going on. So that obviously was very, very hard for them. It changed, alhamdulillah, after time, which I'll talk about later. In terms of the community, my local mosque, at that time, the few months before I converted, I became very close to that mosque. I used to go there to pray Jama'ah. And obviously there was a very big Wahhabi influence there. And we did sit down once or twice and speak about it. And I found that they were what they knew about Shi'ism was very, very little. It was only based on hearsay, what they've heard, blatant lies and blatant, propagandas. And because I was, I think because I was exposed to Shi'ism for such a long time, and they weren't exposed to Shi'ism, I knew when someone said something to me, I knew whether they believed it or not. For example, if someone came to me and said that Shias had a different Quran, I've been with my best friend, my best Shia friend since I was a little boy. I've been to their mosques, I've seen their Qurans. Their Quran's the same. So automatically, that in itself, and I think I'm not going to say it's their fault, because I think this propaganda against Shiism is something that comes from much higher up than them. So, I'm not going to say that they too are, just evil people plotting against Islam. No, I think they genuinely believe it. But because I had a big understanding of Shia Islam at the time, I don't want to say I pitied them, but I pitied this view. I pitied what they were. I pitied these perceptions that they were saying, and it was not enough to bring me back. And interestingly, another thing I found was that maybe 2 weeks or so after I converted, no one tried their hardest to bring me back. No one did. No one. People told me, you're wrong, and we'll find out on Day of Judgment. Or you're wrong. You'll go live your life. They'll never say, sit down with me, Nuri, are you sure it's the right decision? Let's talk about this. How did you reach this conclusion? What evidences do you have here and there? Let's discuss. No one worked on me. From what I would have liked to see, part of me would have liked to see, is that someone worked on me from then till now, just trying to bring me back, but no one did. No one did. And in the meantime, I had my Shia community. They weren't brainwashing me at all. They weren't telling me this is what you have to do. The first thing I was told when I became Shia is that you have to respect your family. That was the first thing I was told. You can imagine, you have to respect your family. And I was always taught by Shias, whenever I asked about Shia beliefs, whilst I was Shia, and I asked about different things here and there, I was always taught in such a way that this is it, this is the evidence, accept it if you want. Not you have to believe this, you have to believe that. you have to believe A, B, and C, because if you don't, you're going to hell, and you know, this, you have to have this mentality. No, they were very like, this is the mentality,